Okay, so we're going to start with a new Xcode project, and it'll be a single view. On this page, I'm going to just give it a name. The book tells you to call it, what does the book tell you to call it? Hold on, let me get my iPad working here. Okay, so let me get to the chapter. And that doesn't mean we're going to blow off some of these. I think some of the important concepts we'll go back to, enums especially. But in this case, again, this chapter is mostly about how you go from screen to screen. We did that before with the person one. Remember the person one that we did? So we go from screen to screen. One of the problems you have with that is, I think I explained this to you last class, is that if we put just a back button in there and you go from screen to screen and back and forth without removing, it keeps in memory is what I'm trying to say. So you have to do this removal of memory, and they'll talk about that in the reading here. The other thing that's really nice is that they have this navigational bar that we'll actually use in the national park example that I did. Okay, so when we get to this, it just basically puts a back button. It's almost like breadcrumbs almost in web design, right? Remember the breadcrumbs in web design? So let's get started. Again, if you're going from screen to screen, it's called a segue, right? The S-E-G-U-E-S, segues. And of course, they talk a little bit about that. To trigger a segue, usually we use a button with an action that the person would click on, or they can also swipe, right? You can swipe from screen to screen as well. So there's different ways to get from different view controller to view controller. For this example, I forget what they tell us to call it in the book here. What is it?
They called it seg traffic.
Traffic? Seg traffic?
No, traffic seg.
Traffic segue?
Yeah.
How about that? That sounds like a good name.
You don't have it on
Oh, sorry. We're going to go back and forth. There we go. So again, I'm just in a new Xcode project. We call it Traffic Segue. And then we go next, find a place that you can store it. And I'm going to hit Create. And then it's going to come up with this. And I'm just going to use, instead of using Universal, we're going to use an iPhone example. So I'm going to go to the iPhone as the example for this. And so really, we're not going to do many constraints, really. It's not too hard. It's more about going from screen to screen to screen. So when I'm done, I'm going to go to the main storyboard file. And of course, as you can see, one of the things we notice and we haven't really talked about is when you have your view controller, you'll notice there's an arrow right there. See it? Basically, this arrow is telling you what is the first view controller that you're going to do. So I'm just going to go, and they tell you to put a button on there. So we go down to the lower corner down here, and we type in button, and we grab our button, and we drag it into the center of the screen. Again, if we want our button to stay in the center of the screen, we need to give it some constraints. So, of course, we can go down to our constraints, and we can tell it to be 0, 0, and that'll tell it to be in the center of the screen. So if we go down to our constraints, oh, not that constraints, this constraints, alignment constraints, we can say 0, 0 for a horizontal and vertical container, and we can add our two constraints. The next thing is that since this is called a traffic light example, basically they want you to go from green or yellow to red, or red, green, yellow, basically for the different color screens. So we're going to add a color to the background. And to add the color to the background, of course, we just click on our view controller, and over here you'll notice there is a background color. So again, make sure you're in the attributes inspector right here, the one that goes down. So again, if I click inside here, you should be able to see the background here, and I can change that to, again, red. And it's going to be kind of light red so that you can read the button. I'm not going to make it too dark. So again, we have one screen, one view controller. Now in the book, and I'm kind of going through a little bit quickly here, they go through and add some more view controllers. So one concept I want to make out is that a view controller, you can add as many as you want, but as far as programming, you kind of need to have a different Swift file for each view controller, just to be able to do that. So I'll show you what I mean by that, and they talk about that in the book. So if I go over here to the down here where we typed in button and we type in view for, of course, view controller, I can zoom out a little bit. There's a little minus at the bottom, and down here you have your different view controller. If I drag this out, it'll give you a whole new window, and we did that before. And I'm going to put another button on there, so I'm going to go and put another button in there, and I'm going to drag that button into the center there and give that some constraints as well. And then, of course, since it's the middle one, and again, I'm on page 336 in the book, on page 336 in the book, of course, that's the middle one is a yellow, right? So we're going to give it a yellow background. So let's go to, you can change the background color here as well. So, oh, that's green. Is that green or yellow? I don't know, kind of greenish yellow. How about this one? No. How about we click in the box and we make our own yellow? There we go. How about that? There we go. So we have a yellow one. Again, I have a button in the middle with some constraints. I have a button in the middle here with some constraints. Again, that's on page 336 in the book. One of the things you'll notice, and I want to point this out right now, and it was kind of confusing to me because I started thinking about programming and how I would probably program this screen right here. Remember how we would take a button and we would kind of control drag it into the programming to add an action, right? Control drag it in there for an action. Well, in this case, you can't do that because this isn't, I know it's a view controller, but it doesn't have its own programming window. If you look at this one over here, if we look at the view controller right there, that view controller by default is for this one, but this is not, this one doesn't have one. So if we go over here to this window right here, you'll notice if I go to bring up the programming, and let me kind of move, whoa, I didn't want to do that. If I bring up the programming window, hold on, let me move it back here, let me move it back here. If I bring up the programming window, and I'm on the yellow one, if I can make this window a little bit smaller here. I can never have enough space. Let me hide this over here for a moment. Okay, let's look at this for just a minute. This confused me a lot, and I was trying to figure out, and how the book kind of explains it in this area right here, is they're talking about how the, oh, hold on, I gotta get to the, oh. Let me shrink this down here. That the view control, if I click on here, watch, if I click on the first one, right here, you'll notice it brings up my Swift file, right? So if I click on the first one, it brings up my Swift file. I can add as much programming I want for this view controller right here. But since I dragged in a separate view controller, if I click on this one, you'll notice it doesn't give me that. It just gives me this UI view controller file right here. It's the import file. It's like the default one. It's not a place I can add programming like I can to this one. And what you would need to do is have a separate view controller file for this and so on. So it was confusing to me because I was thinking, because we're used to control dragging this button, right? Control drag into the programming, and I couldn't do that. I was like, why can't I do that? Why can't I do that? And so I don't have an answer for that. I just have the view controller. So let's go back to this one, the first one.
But Jeff, I read somewhere that you just do file new.
Yeah, I can make a new one. Yeah. So if I wanted to add programming to the second one, I would make a simple Swift Swift file by saying File, New, make a blank Swift file, give it a name, and that's it. In fact, in my other book that I have, that's what they do, is to go back and forth between the two. They actually make another Swift file.
I don't know where I read it, but
Yeah.
I was trying to add some logic so that when I came in, it would say, this is the word that you were supposed to spell, you lost. I couldn't figure out how to do that, but I figured we were going to cover it today. To say,
We can talk about that in a little bit. Let's finish. Careful. Okay, so in this case, to go from screen to screen, of course, we've seen that before. I can simply click on my button, and let me zoom in here. Let me close this. To go from screen to screen, I can simply, and let me scroll a little bit, grab my button, hold down my control key, and drag into this one right here. Do you remember doing that? And doing that, it'll bring up this segue here. And in the segue, you got a couple different options. You just have a show that kind of pops it on, right? But then you also have this one who will do some transitions where it'll scale up from the bottom. So again, we can read right from the book here. Imagine you want to transition to the yellow view controller when the user taps your UI button in the red view controller. Holding down the control key, select the button and drag the cursor to the second view controller. This action should frame the yellow view controller with the blue line, indicating a valid point of the segue. When you release the mouse or trackpad, you'll see a popover that allows you to specify presentation methods of the segue. Therefore, there are multiple segues to choose from, but focus your attention on present, modally, and show. The present one will display the yellow view controller over the red using the bottom to top sliding animation. You will see the animation in the Mail app. So again, what they're kind of saying is in the Mail app they have these basic transitions in here. So let's choose one. You can jump back and forth, and I'll show you how to change it. So if you chose, let's say you chose show. Okay, so we just chose show. And we test our file. I'm going to save it and test it. And if I test it right now, you'll notice that it will then go and hopefully go here. It will go and hopefully go. And if we click show, it kind of slides up, okay, which is fine. If we want to do a different one, you can also click on here. I forget how to, was it control click on it? There's a way to change it. I'll have to remember. There's a way to change, no, I thought it was control click, maybe option. The other thing you'll notice is that the segue, you can tell what the segue is connected to, is if you click on the segue, you'll notice it highlights this button. So let's say I had more than one button on here, right? Let's say I had a whole list of buttons on here, and I wanted to know which one was going where. If you click on it, notice how it highlights it as well. Do you see that? Okay, so you can actually tell which one is connected to this one by clicking on the segue there. So he asks you to make a third one as well. So I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to put another one on there as well. Again, I'm going to open up the right side here, and I'm going to type in view for view controller. And I'm going to type in a third one. And of course, this one needs to be green. So if you click on it, you could change the color to green. Or if you just click on the other box, you can choose your green. There we go. That's a nice green there. And then they ask you to put a button in there and hit and tell it to be dismissed. So I'm going to put button in there. And I'm going to drag it in the center. Maybe add some constraints. Then change the word from button to dismiss. Dismiss. And the reason why is what's going on here is that you're going from screen to screen to screen, and in order to dismiss all this and go back to red, you can do that through programming. Okay, so you can add some programming here that when the person clicks here, it'll dismiss all this kind of layers you went through to go back to the very beginning or wherever the view controller is, basically, the first view controller. So it's quite easy to do. First thing I'm going to do is drag the button, this one, to this one so it goes there as well. So if I control click, let me zoom in a little bit. If I control click to that one, again, I'm going to show, choose one. So now they'll go from one to the other, to the other, to the other. Again, you build and run your app, you'll click on the buttons, you'll see the yellow animate from the bottom up over the top of the red view. Now add the third view controller positioning to the right of the yellow and set it to background to green, which we just did. And so again, they talk about generic. So what they want to do is go back. So if I zoom out, let me zoom out here. And if I test it, let's test it real quick here. You should be able to go from button to dismiss. Now this doesn't do anything, so we have to add some programming to this to actually get it to go back. So in order to add the programming to this to get it to go back, I'm going to the other thing I've noticed, and the other thing I wanted to point out, is that each view controller kind of scene has its own sort of option here. You see that? Okay, so I have three, right? I have 1, 2, 3. I have 3 here. 1, 2, 3 as well. So each one is 3 and 3 as well here. So as you add view controllers, you can have more in here. It'd be nice if we could organize this a little bit better. Maybe put them in groups and stuff. I don't know. But you can kind of organize them, you can move them around, and so on. So there is an ability to put each view controller in together. So let's add some programming. The programming to go back and program the dismiss is on page 337. On page 337. So I'm going to go again to the first one, and I'm going to bring up the view controller Swift file right here. So I'm going to go back to the first one here. And if I go back to the first one, I can then go and bring up the programming, of course, with our Olympic thing here. Remember our Olympic rings here, and bring up our view controller. So I have one view controller. So right after, remember we're used to dragging the button in from here into here, and it gives us an action or an outlet. And an outlet would be for if you have a text field and you want to add text and so on. And then if you want to be able to add a button with some action, usually we click here and drag in. Well, in this case, we're not going to actually drag to add the button. If you look on page 337, basically we're adding some code that does have an action, but the action will be called later on at the very end on the dismiss button. So we are going to add an action for the button, but it won't be called until the very last frame or last view controller with the dismiss button. So if you come up here, usually we put our actions up here. So if you look at the code on page 337, it's the @ sign, and then you have IB action, and then it's a function, and then they call it unwind to red, which is basically a made-up word. You can type in unwind to red, and then put in a name, unwind segue, and then a colon, and then of course the magic this UI Storyboard Segue is part of Swift. So the code that they have here is called UI Storyboard with a capital S Segue inside of round brackets, and then they have curly brackets after that. And basically you're adding an action. Oh, and it's still not working right. let me move it so I can see what the error message is here.
Board is spelled wrong.
Oh, storyboard, B-O-A-R-D, B-O-A-R-D, storyboard. So again, this UI storyboard segue right here is basically part of Swift, and if you go up to your help menu and you search, it will actually come up with some information on that. So you can type in your UI storyboard, and it'll come up. There's a couple different ones in there. You can see what the storyboard is. It's basically a way of controlling how screens go from segue from Viewcontroller to Viewcontroller to Viewcontroller, and the one we're using is the unwind, right? Or no, yeah, we are using unwind, but this is called UI Storyboard Segue. UI, this one right here. Again, right there, you can see it's a class. Supports the standard visual transitions available in UI Kit. You can also subclass it to define custom transitions between the Viewcontrollers and your storyboard file. So basically, it's a way of going back in time, we'll say maybe. So we're going to go back in time to the red one, to the very first one. So to do that, they talk about in the book. So I'm going to close this. I'm going to go back to just...
Wait, Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
in the book it says you're supposed to put it just after the view did load.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
The
Yeah, if you
book
put
is a
it...
mistake?
Yeah, the book does have a mistake. Don't tell Apple that yet. If you do try and put it under here, it'll give you an error message.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple mistakes in the book I found. You know, it takes me a little while to look it up, but I find it.
But I thought we put the outlets before the view did load.
The outlet?
I thought the actions were put after the view did load and the outlets were put before the view did load.
It depends on, no, they can go up here. Like I'm going to put an action up there above there as well for the outlet above the view did load. Mm-hmm.
I guess it doesn't matter.
I think the reason why it's giving me an error message is because it's not connected to anything yet. Right? If I drag from here with the control key and drag it over here, it will let me put it there without an error message.
It will or will not?
It will. It will, because it's connected to something. I think the reason why, if you try and put it down here, and it gives you an error message, is because it is, it doesn't have, it's not connected to anything. So it's saying, I don't know what I'm doing, you know, I'm not connected to anything. So I think it does work after the view did load if you connect it to something. But I didn't get to work unless I put it up there. I'm just going off of what I got it to work. It worked there. I know what the book says. I don't know. I couldn't get it to work down there. So yeah, the book tells you to put it down here. But when I put it down there, here, watch. If I put it down here, it starts giving me an error message. Well, mine gave me an error message. Oh, there you go. And it took me a while to try and figure that out. I was struggling. I was like, why is it doing this to me? But if I put it up here, it didn't give me an error message and it worked. So I don't know. Okay, so here's how I fixed it, or how you use it now. How you use this code that we just wrote. We go to the dismiss button. Here it is, dismiss. And so if you click on a view controller, you'll notice there's some icons that go across the top here. This is the view controller. This is a first responder. And this is an exit. Do you see them across the top there? So this is kind of a way of telling you, hey, what am I doing when I leave? In fact, what we're going to do is we're going to be sharing data between some of these view controllers as well. But this is kind of, hey, when I leave this, what is going to happen? And so when we leave this, we want to go back to the red one. To do that, they actually go and you use the control key like you would use the control drag into the code. So I'm going to use the control key. So I'm going to click on this. I'm going to control drag to the exit. And when I let my finger up off the mouse, it comes up with the unwind that I just wrote. The function here, right here, see where it says unwind to red? It'll come up with that. So if I click on that, it should then go back to the red one. And so let's test it. Let's test it. So there is a reason for this. So there's an exit up here. And here we go. And it should go from button to button. And then if we go from button to dismiss, it'll go back to the very first one. Okay, so let me go back and then we can, so that's pretty much all they wanted to talk about within the first section of the book here. It's pretty much showing you the dismiss was important, and then they talk about how it's used in a variety of other applications, especially in the Mail app, right? In the Mail app. So in the Mail app, if you've ever used the Apple Mail app, they have a compose button, transitions, reading messages, and so on. I don't know if I have my Mail app here. I don't know. Let's see. Do I have a Mail app? I do have a Mail app. I don't know. Let's see. I'm invited to go to Dodge Ridge. Let's see. See how it transitions up, I guess, is what they're trying to say there, and so on. So we're gonna actually go and implement some functions like that. So let me go back. Oh, you didn't see it because you weren't there. Hold on. I was looking at my Mail app on my thing here. So again, on a Mail app, you'll see there is some transitions and so on, and then so they're talking about that on page 339. Then they talk about how you can change the font size. If you ever look at the top here, you'll notice there is some font size there. Okay, so you can make the font size a little bit larger if you would want. In doing so, you can just, well, let's go back to the example there. And so we're going to add a different one to this. And hold on, we got the navigation controller, push and structure like the. So the next example that they're going to talk about is actually using a actual navigational controller. Okay, what's called a navigational controller. So you can think of the navigational controller, this one right here. We're going to use this in the National Park app. So what the navigational controller is where it actually puts kind of a like a navigational bar over top of all of the other view controllers, and you can slide them in and out of the navigational controller. So it's like a giant button that you can put over top of all these other things, and each one of these can be slide in and slide out underneath here. Okay. The beauty of using the navigational controller is that it can have pre-made programming for you. A pre-made back button and a pre-made stuff. It's great for the table view controller. Remember I said that we're going to use the making the National Park app that actually has a table view like this. Okay, so what we're going to have is when the person clicks on the table, it's going to go to a new view controller, and then it's automatically going to have a back button that's in the upper corner right there. And so you'll have your map, your National Park map here. Person to interact with it and stuff like that. And then when you get back to the menu, you hit the back button, it goes automatically back to this. So you don't have to do these segue kind of things. It's pre-made into this controller here, the navigational controller right here. So let's try and add that. To add your navigational controller to this project, you actually go down to the, I'm going to go kind of towards the beginning here. Again, remember, this is the first one. That's why it has a little arrow there. Okay, so we go back to the kind of the beginning here. And I'm going to bring up the right side here. Oh, yeah. Let me close that. Thank you. So, again, you'll notice up here in the upper corner, I'm going to bring up my right side here. And in the right side, I'm going to type down here, navigational, or navigation. And you have this thing again called a navigation controller here. And you take this navigation controller and you'll put it on your screen here, and it'll kind of control all of the way that these screens go together. So again, I'm going to drag it onto the screen. Oh, no, you don't drag it on. I'm sorry. I made a mistake. Hold on. I'm going to delete that. Oh, no, I can't undo. No, I don't want to add that. I'm going to delete it. I clicked on it. You might have to click twice on it. Don't drag it on. Now I remember. You can drag it on, but basically what you want to do is you want to actually click on the first red one because you want it to start at the very beginning. So in order to add it to there, we're going to actually use the menu item. And in fact, in my tutorial for the national park, they actually add it the same way, where you actually click on the first Viewcontroller and you go underneath the editor, I believe it is, embed in Navigation Controller. And this is how you can embed. So I have the first one selected. See how it's blue, right? And then if I come over here to the editor, you can go embed in. And so we're actually embedding this navigational controller into this first window here. And notice the other one as well. Look, you can also embed the tab controller. And that will embed the one down here. And you can make your own icons and have it go from screen to screen to screen that way as well. So, you know, they're making it so easy for you to be able to go from one screen to the other. It's almost like breadcrumbs inside of web design. You'll see. So hit that navigational controller, and it puts it inside there, and you can move it around so it's not over top of it. You can move it around. I don't know why. Why do I have another one over here? I don't know why I have two. Just the right one. I don't know why I had two. But I was able to get rid of one. Maybe I'll do it again in case. No, let's not do it again. I might mess it up. So again, I have the navigational controller. Notice it has a back button here as well. See it right here? So let's try it. Let's try it. I'm going to go and test my movie. Test my movie. And if I look at my movie now, or my app now, and I hit my button, you'll notice it automatically puts a back button here. See the back button at the top up here? Go back. Button, back, button, back, button, button. Oh, but there's none one here. We need to add it here as well. But hit dismiss and it goes back. For some reason, it didn't do all of them. So let me read here a little bit and let me see. The show segue between the red, yellow, and green Viewcontrollers have adapted to show rather than present modularly. This is a key feature to the show segue. It adapts the presentation method depending on whether it's used within a navigation controller or independently. So I don't know. Let me go back and let me zoom in. And it's not in the last one for a reason. And let me delete it, and I'm going to start over a little bit. Let me delete that, and let me see. This is show. This should all be show. Again, here's where you can change the segue. And I was trying to do that earlier with you, and I kind of made a mistake. But again, to talk about the segue here, you'll notice if I click in between here, you see how it says show right there, and if I click here, it says presents modularly. I'm going to change that to show, and I think they all need to be show to be able to use the in order to use the navigational controller. I think that's what my problem was, and I'm not sure if I know really the difference, but I'll figure it out eventually. So again, it's if you click here, I have show. If I click here, I have show. Now let me try and bring in the navigational controller. So I'm going to go back to this first one again, go back to the first one. And again, it was under Edit, Embed in, Navigational Controller. And that works there. Yeah, now notice, see how it now has the back button now? Okay, so depending upon the segue will depend upon how it works. So again, now I should have the back button for the far one. Again, I had to change all these arrows, these segues, to show. To change them to show, it's right here. If you click and you say show. And there's other ones in there, but the show seems to work here. And then look, there's some deprecated ones down here. And then you can, through programming, change the way that it does it as well with different options. But now that I added and changed them all to show, if I preview now, let me save and preview, it should then have the back button at the top of each one And so it's a great pre-made content that that is built into Xcode. Things like this is going to make your app run a lot smoother and a lot easier for you to navigate from Viewcontroller to Viewcontroller if you use the pre-made kind of, the pre-made navigation things like this, as well as the tabbed menu would be a very useful. And I don't know why it's not previewing here. Uh-oh. Now I crashed it. I get a fail. Maybe I had too many. It seemed to work. Let me try again. This needs to we're missing our arrow there, aren't we? Let me delete it. I think after I've deleted it a couple times and added it, I think it got confused. Let me add another one. Let me try one more time here. Again, it was under Editor, Embed in, Navigational Controller. I think trying to do it too many times.
Zoom out a little bit more. Last time I had one hiding in there.
Yeah. I don't see it right now. I don't know. Let me see. Let me save. And let me preview. Now it's crashing. I think if we read it here, it says, failed to initiate the default view controller for main storyboard file. Main, perhaps a designated entry point is not set. Uh-huh.
Bring up your code again.
Which one? This?
The Olympic code, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Move your unwind function below the override super view.
Move this?
Yeah.
Below? Where, down here?
Yes.
Inside here or below
Yeah,
here?
it's right there. Now try it. Because mine works, but I have it there.
Yeah, I don't get the error message now. Like I was getting error message before. No, I think it's because it doesn't know what is first. So let me put this back up where it was working here. That's fine. I think you need to take the because I deleted one and added a new one. It gets really confused if you try doing things like that in Xcode. You know that, as I well know that. I think we need to tell this to be the first thing that it goes to, and I think that's kind of the message it's saying. And usually there's an option that says define first over here. Is initial view controller. I'm going to check this box. See it right here? That's what you need right here. See that right there? Is initial view. So I selected it and I checked is initial view controller. This will fix it. I've had that problem before. Oh. Yeah, see that? So it was this box right here, is initial, because it didn't know which one was first. That's why. So again, if you click the button now, you'll see it go. You got your back button. You got your back button. If I click back, it goes back to yellow. I click back, it goes back to red. Button, button, button. Oh, dismiss goes all the way back. So let's talk about, you can add your own custom words up here at the top up here. Because think about this. Maybe it's a national park app and you want them to go from one screen to, let's say, the map, right? You want to say map up there, right? Or you want it to say photo gallery up there, right? So we can go up there and change the name that is up there by actually clicking up there. So if you click in this little bar up here at the top, see up here at the top, you'll notice you have a title option. Do you see that right there? So I can actually put the title. Of course, the book is just using simple things. You can put in red. Whoops, title red, and put the title up there at the top. It should be up there. And then you can also tell it to be large if you want. You can tell it to be large, which makes it extra big, just like you would in, and it's not showing you right now, but you can make it extra large. In addition, you can click on the second one. Let's say you go to the yellow one. So right now I have red, And of course, this one says red here. Why does it say red? Well, it's taking the word that you have here and dragging it over here. Because you went from red to yellow, go back to red. Now, you don't have to keep it like that. You can come over here and you can change the name of it. Let me see, how did I change the name? This is red. Back button right here. This is, so again, I go back to the red and see where it says back button. We could give it a name and say go back to red. And so then it will change the name of this right here. So you can control what the back button is called. You can control what the back button is called. So we got go back to red. Same with here. If you're in this one, I think there's a way to actually have it go back as well. This one as well. Let's give this a title. I think you could give this a title. Thought you could. Let me see the book here. So you can give that a title. So that is red. And then they also talk about how you can adjust it as well. So when a navigation controller is added to the scene, interface builder adds only a navigational item to the root view controller. But what if you want to add titles to the yellow and green one? You can add titles to the yellow and green one by finding a navigational item in the objects library and drag it to the top of each controller, and then you can give it. So you can, like on the yellow one here, we can put a title up there. To put a title up there, we come down here to navigational bar. Navigational item. I'm going to add the navigational item by clicking here. So again, navigation down here at the very bottom down here. And if I go navigational item, I can put it up there. And then you can get a title. This is what, yellow? Like that. Then I can come over here and you'll notice, see how it says yellow over here as well now. And I can add a title to this one as well. And I can call that, what are we going? Green is the last one, right? Green. Green is the last one, and then we can change this from yellow to whatever. Well, actually, there is no back button. The back goes back to yellow. So if we wanted to change that, we would change it here. Go yellow, right? And this one, go. I'm just gonna use simple words. Red. So again, red, go yellow. So this navigational bar that we have at the top is a really useful way of adding navigation. It makes it so simple. Right? So simple. So the other thing to keep in mind is that we will have a different sort of file for each one of the, there. So when we're going to make a screen, probably not till after spring break now, that has a map in it for our national park map. It'll have its own Swift file, and we'll have a back button that goes back to the main menu. So it does make it very easy for you to have navigation. The hard part, of course, is programming each view, right? But I did list a video on how to do the map that might be good for you to try over the winter or over the spring break. Watch that video. I watched it. Pretty easy. There's a video on Canvas on how to do the map. We'll do that probably not till after spring break. But prepare. You should think of whatever national. Try and take your own pictures. You all have pictures of Yosemite, probably. Everybody probably does. Or Pinnacles. Anybody been to the Pinnacles? Never been to the Pinnacles. You've been there. Okay, it's only an hour and a half drive, right? Drive down, maybe 2 hours. Depends on how fast you drive down the freeway, right? It's down past Gilroy there, past Hollister. Go through Hollister, there's town, you still have some coffee. Takes another hour maybe, and an hour, go up into the mountains, especially this time of year, it's all green. Beautiful green. And then when you get to the Pinnacles, all the flowers are coming out this time of year. And the bats. Let's see bats, dude. You gotta climb through cave, so bring your flashlight. You wanna go in the cave. Some of them are kind of tight. You gotta kind of crawl down and get inside. Go take pictures there. That would be a good one. What's our national park around here? Isn't the Golden Gate a national park? Golden Gate Bridge a national park?
Recreation area.
Oh, recreational. Yosemite. Muir Woods? know I was at a national park or not.
Can we use a picture from, they have business from before?
Is that
Can we use the picture from before?
before?
Yeah, from, the previous visits.
Sure. What I'm trying to say is we're going to have a photo gallery. And we're going to use a grid. There's a grid thing in there. You put your grid in. Then we're going to have a map. Then we're going to have some text for camping information and stuff. And then there was one other one we were going to make, right? Grid, photo gallery, map. There was one other one we were going to make. It was like 4 pages. Can't even remember now. It's okay. Let's finish this real quick. So we're going back, go back, green, and so on. Quite nice. Green is good. So these are all large titles on page 345. And they talk about that. And then they talk about passing information. And let's do that. So let's say, and this is important, you want to be able to take data from one field to the other, right? So let's say you have a login and you're saying, hey, type in your name, and you want to take their name and use it in another Viewcontroller or another Viewcontroller. You can do that. That's on page 384 or 348. So again, if we come over here, we're going to put a text field in here. So if you wanted more than one line, what would you use? Let's type in text down here. These are the questions on the test. Which one allows you to have more than one line? Text view. Text field is usually one. And the nice thing about the text field is you can edit it, right? So I'm going to grab the text field and drag it out. On the red one. I'm on the red one. Just drag it out there. So what we want to do is we want to give this text field some programming so that we can take the name and add some, whatever we put in a text field, we want to be able to use in another view, right? So to do that, of course, we have to give it an outlet. So to give it an outlet, of course, we need to bring up our Viewcontroller. Here's our Viewcontroller. Oh, well, we need to see our double screen. Sorry, double screen. And of course, if you click in here, it should give me, why does it give me this one? I can't get my Viewcontroller up. This red one should have, oh, there it is. I had to click around a little bit to get my correct one. So again, we're going to add an outlet for this text field. So this is a plain text field. It's a plain text field. And remember to put it in there, we use the control, click and drag. And we're going to bring it in here. I just put it at the top up here. I don't think it needs to be down here. I just put it next to the other action. And I'm going to release the mouse. Again, it's an outlet because it's a text field. And then we're going to put in, they tell you to call it text field. They said call it text field. Again, this is on page 348 in the book. Text field like that. And then hit OK. I don't think you need to change any other options right there. And of course, by doing that, we have now connected the text field to our programming. Notice it has a exclamation point. What does that mean? The exclamation point says it can be empty for a while, right? Right? Remember the exclamation point says, hey, you can be empty for a little bit. Now you've set up the segue to pass the text from the text field to the yellow controller. Every UI Viewcontroller has a method, prepare for segue sender, which is called before the segue from the Viewcontroller takes place. Begin typing prepare near the bottom of the Viewcontroller definition, but before the closing brackets. Xcode will offer to help you complete the method. Choose prepare for segue sender and press the return key. So what they're trying to say is that, you know, as the person clicks the button, it's going to take whatever code that you have and hence they're calling it prepare for segue, and then take that information and pass it on to where you're going. To do that, they say go down here towards the bottom, not below the override function down here, as long as it's before this closing bracket. As long as it's before this closing bracket in the view controller. And if I type in again, they said just type in prepare. And it comes up with the prepare for this one. Prepare for segue UI storyboard sender any. Oh, I don't know, it didn't say UI. No, which one do they want? Prepare for segue. It is this, but without all of this, I don't think. Let me type some more. Prepare Pierre. I don't know why it has this UI storyboard segue. Prepare for, yeah, I guess that's the one they want because they have it in there as well. So if you double click on this one, so after, again, I just was right before the closing bracket, and if I click on this, it'll actually bring up this. Xcode will offer to complete the method name, choose prepare for segue sender, and press return key to add the method. The first argument of the method is the segue itself. A segue contains a few properties that help to pass information across it. Of course, the identifier is the name of the segue, which differentiates it from other segues. You can set the property in Interface Builder using Attributes Inspector. The next one is destination, the view controller that will be displayed once the segue is complete. While the value is UI controller, you may need to downcast it to a particular view controller subclass in order to access properties accessible only on the subclass. I guess if you're going to more than the next one, right, you might need to name it. I think that's what they're saying. Destination is if you're going, let's say you're doing a bunch of them, you know, which one are you going to? I think is destination. Since there's only one segue in the red view controller, the identifier isn't needed. And since your goal is to update the title property of the navigation item and every view controller has the property, there's no need to downcast. So the code to set the title of the destination navigation is very straightforward. So what they're trying to say is whatever text you put in here, we're not even going to put an outlet in the yellow one. What we're going to do is we're just going to change the title at the top. You remember how it says yellow up there, right? We're going to change the title at the top. They're just saying, hey, you can make it easy that way. So to make it easy that way, you can just simply use the programming that they have there. Again, down here it says, where are we at? Well, they got two override. So they got override function, prepare for segue, storyboard sender any. And so then in the argument itself right here, they're going to change the destination navigational item title. So the navigational item, of course, is the yellow at the top. And whatever you put in there, you're going to put in the text field, so at the title. So again, it's segue. It's on the bottom of page 349. Segue dot destination. Oops. T-I-N-A-T-I-O-N destination. Dot navigational item, so it's giving us stuff here. Let's double click on that so we don't spell it wrong. Dot title, navigational item dot title, that would designated the title at the top of the page is equal to our text field because we made one called text field, and remember it's capital F. Remember whatever the name of this is, and then we're going to set it to the text. Oops. We type in text right. Text. So again, what this is doing is before you leave this area, take the text that's in there and put it in here is what they're saying. So again, it's at the bottom there. So let's test it. Let's try it and test it. Uh-oh. I got an error. Why am I got so much, what is this? Oh, this code text is in there. There we go. Let me try again. It had some word called code in there. There we go. So again, in the text field itself, so this might be nice if you want to customize your app so that people can put their name in there. So let's put our name in there. So maybe you ask them for their name, right? And if I hit the button there, boom, you'll see it pops up here. Okay? And of course it won't be on this one because it's not on there. It's only going on this one. If you wanted it to be throughout, right? If you wanted it to be throughout, you could put a text field on all the other ones and just have it go in there, and I think it would stay in there the whole time. Right? So passing data between fields. So this is very critical because I'm going to use this same idea with this navigational control bar for the National Park idea and the tab menu. In fact, what they recommend in the book is that the table navigation to use this navigational controller in conjunction with that. So it makes it easy for you to go back and forth between this list menu where you hit the button and it goes, and then the back button to go back. This is a suggestion that they use for that. Did everybody try it? Okay. Getting your text to go past. So if you continue with this, they talk about programming segues with button pushing, and then they talk about using the entering for doing things. And so the entry point is this one, okay, this right here. And we don't have to do that right now. If you don't want to. It's wearing me out already with photographer here and everybody. So we can